Well, the Lakers are coming off their second preseason game, and unfortunately second loss. And I'm not sure who needs to hear this, but no, the games don't actually count. No, Luka Doncic, LeBron, Austin Reeves, even Marcus Smart, nearly half the rotation did not play. Not only that, but during the second half they're playing training camp guys out there, many of which the casual fan and even the pretty advanced Laker fan could not even name by face, so don't overreact and don't read too deeply into it. But with that cautiously in mind here, I think there are a few takeaways that we can take from it, both from Game 1 and from Game 2. A few guys that have stood out in a good way, a few guys that have stood out in a rather poor way, the scheme not working quite yet, simply more chemistry needed on the court, either offensively, defensively, or both. A few guys that have been playing well, and maybe an argument to be made for one joining the starting lineup. So we're going to talk about that, talk about what should be reacted to, what should not be reacted to, and if there are any changes that should be made through 2 preseason games. But without further ado, let's dive right into it. And directly talking about Jarred Vanderbilt, last night he played a very good game on both ends of the court, yes, even offensively. We always know what we're going to get from Jarred Vanderbilt on defense. Great point of attack defense, great defensive playmaking ability, not to mention a great defensive rebounder, simply a great rebounding wing in general. But it's not often you get a guy that drops 9 points in 21 minutes, makes a 3-point shot, even makes a few Euro-step layups at the rim and finishes with both hands at the rim. But that's what Jarred Vanderbilt was doing out there last night. And like I said, it definitely did attract the attention of JJ Redick, mainly from Laker reporters asking about Jarred Vanderbilt to JJ Redick, if he might get more playing time, how he simply feels about Jarred Vanderbilt at this point, and if he might have a shot to join the starting lineup. So here's what Redick had to say about him.
You would be among the more qualified people in the world to kind of take us through Vanderbilt's shot, and just it just looks a little cleaner from a layman's perspective, and the release and all that, and just added with how he looks physically and defensively, all the stuff that you know he can do. Does that make you think even a little bit more about, all right, maybe you could find some more minutes for him, or not find, but you almost have to consider?
People are going to earn minutes. I think that goes for everybody. I've been very impressed by just the amount of work that he's done this summer on his game, and obviously his body is significantly better than this time last year, or even when the season ended. He's moving better, his handle is tighter. I'd never have ever seen him make a Euro D-cell finish. It's good. He's been working on his game, and the shot is sort of the big thing with him. If he can be a consistent three-point shooter for us, that unlocks a lot.
Sticking with Vando, he made a corner three. He had another one that he missed, but he gave it a shot to make it. And obviously, he filled the stat sheet all over the place. I know you told us you don't really care about the starting lineup, and it's not something that you're spending a ton of time considering. But is there a consideration for him with the starting group?
Again, I said that we started 24 lineups last year. The team that started, or the lineup that started the season for us, started 8 games together, and we made a change. So I'm of course open to things, of course, and like I said, everything's going to have to be earned.
Again, very complimentary about Jarred Vanderbilt, his health, how he looks on the court, so on and so forth, even about his offense too. Redick didn't really get to see the best version of Jarred Vanderbilt last year. That wasn't his best version, or even close to it, to my opinion, neither offensively or especially defensively. Not only that, but he wasn't in the best role that fit him well. Because of the trade they made for Luka Doncic and trading away Anthony Davis, getting a whole lot smaller post-trade deadline, which is kind of the point where Jarred Vanderbilt was healthy again. That didn't put him in the best spot within the rotation. Playing more so at the 4 and even the 5 at times to them, playing around the rim on defense, rather than at the point of attack and kind of let loose in defense, and that's the best fit for him in my opinion. But now with him back in a better fitting role for himself, now being a whole lot healthier, being more confident on both ends of the court, Redick is getting to see the best version of Jarred Vanderbilt. And well, with that in mind, will it or should it lead to Vanderbilt joining the starting lineup? I mean, like Redick talked about there, it's definitely up for consideration, but it's not a guarantee or anything close to it. Redick guaranteed the starting lineup last year, something he's talked about, and something he's talked about that he changed very quickly thereafter. That lineup only playing 8 games together last season, and them using a combination of 25 different starting lineups last year, so he doesn't want to make that same mistake again. thinking that he will have a definitive 5-man opening lineup that he'll use for a majority if not the entire season, that's simply not going to work out. Whether a player is up and down offensively, defensively, somebody gets hurt, or whatever it might be, there likely will be changes throughout the entire year. So no, it's not that important to include him quite yet, not that important to have a definitive starting lineup quite yet, but it's definitely good to have options. And well, Jared Vanderbilt is definitely giving him a good option right now. I think we all knew this entering this season, but Vanderbilt's probably one of, if not the best defender on the entire team, not to mention the most versatile defender, a guy that truly can defend 1 through 4 on the court, something that no other player on their team, at least not healthy at the moment, maybe a Theo in a year's time or so, is able to do on their entire team. So now Jared Vanderbilt, and having a healthy and the best version of Jared Vanderbilt, that might be something to consider for their opening game lineup. I mean, at this point, they're not looking very good on defense, and that's without Luka Doncic, LeBron, and Austin, who are not particularly great defenders, at least not guys that are going to take on a tough defensive matchup. So apart from them, are you going to have Rui Hachimura do it? I mean, he kind of was forced to do that last season and wasn't particularly great at doing it. Between himself and or Austin Reeves, they weren't great defensively. Not terrible per se, but definitely not the best fit to take on a tough defensive matchup. So you probably don't want to make them fill that role again for your team. And now with Marcus Smart kind of recovering, he's not currently hurt per se, at least not with a serious injury, but with him missing some time of training camp, with him missing some part of preseason and potentially more of it going forward, then he probably won't be the best candidate for it, purely from the lack of chemistry in their lineup, the lack of chemistry with the other guys that will be in the starting lineup. At that point, he'd probably be a better fit to come off the bench. I like the theoretical fit of him in the starting lineup, is the versatile defensive option himself, is the better and more proven offensive option, whether you're talking about playmaking ability, ball handling ability, 3-point shooting, all of that compared to Vanderbilt, he is better offensively, even though he's not great himself. But with him not being healthy at this current moment, at least not, fully cleared to be doing 5-on-5 contact work and be playing with the team at a full kind of participation level, then it might fall to Jared Vanderbilt simply from availability, which is kind of weird to talk about with Jared Vanderbilt, but it's great to see him finally healthy again. So if you're asking me, yes, I do think he will be and should be up for consideration for their starting lineup, but I don't think it's definitive quite yet. I don't think it's confirmed or anywhere near being confirmed by JJ Redick. In fact, I don't even think he cares that much about it. Again, with them changing often throughout last season, with him having many different options for it, I don't think that he's really putting that much stock into it. In fact, I think the closing lineup is much more important than their starting lineup. But yes, I do think Vanderbilt will be and should be a consideration for it, mainly in regard to their defense and trying to improve it. Not only that, but balancing out their defense and offense throughout their entire rotation, I think Vanderbilt would be a pretty decent option for it, especially if he can maintain or improve his 3-point shooting. That's another factor to weigh in here too. I mean, we have seen it look a little bit better throughout the early portion of training camp and preseason so far, mainly in regard to the shooting motion, not the actual results quite yet, only being 1 for 6 in 2 games throughout preseason, but the one shot they did make looked pretty good. I think the improved shooting motion is the real thing. I think the confidence is there with him, and hopefully he will be able to improve upon that throughout the entire regular season. And if he can, combine with the newer, rather pre-injury version of himself on defense, then I think Jared Vanderbilt would be a damn good option for their starting lineup, and definitely their closing lineup too. But apart from that, I think there are a few other takeaways to talk about, one of which being DeAndre Ayton. No, I don't think we should factor in the offense or care too much about it so far. Him only putting up a grand total of 8 points through 2 games. I mean, if you think about it, with no Luka Doncic, no LeBron, no Austin Reeves, or even Marcus Smart off the bench, there's not much reliable playmaking around him. I mean, we've seen the bad lob passes being thrown to him, the fact that he's even converted a few of them says a lot, and the fact that he's not running a whole lot of pick and roll quite yet. If anything, he's been more of a dump off guy around the rim, more of a DHO guy, not really a guy that's running a ton of pick and roll, not a guy that's being involved in play sets too heavily, and I think that will change with the addition of more playmakers on their team. But apart from that and not caring too much about it, I thought he's looked pretty good on defense. One of the few guys that's looked decent to above average on defense throughout preseason. Mainly himself and Jared Vanderbilt so far, kind of the only two to point to. But I thought Ayton's provided some decent rim protection at times, has been a great defensive rebounder for their team. In fact, I think that might be the best thing to point to with him. I think that's been looking pretty good with Ayton. Even apart from that, I think the effort and the willingness to commit to defense and really to both ends of the court has been there with him too. You know, trying to make the effort plays and trying to make the hustle plays that count. I think that's a very good sign for him, given that he's trying to make it a point this early and often too. But apart from that, I think there's not a whole lot of positive takeaways to talk about, not even many main takeaways to talk about in general. Again, we're talking about preseason games that don't count, talking about a team and an offense that's playing without their 3 main guys in the court, so I don't think you can read too deeply into it. Though I will say defensively they do have to improve here. Apart from the individual performances, the team defense has not been good, the communication has been pretty bad, the execution has been pretty bad, the switching and overall scheme has not been very good in general, so I think that does need improvement. Again, we can harp about the offense not looking good, but that's playing without Luka Doncic, LeBron, Austin Reeves. That can't be the same thing for their defense. If you're playing without them and guys that aren't a big part of their defense per se, at least not the main contributors to it, then you probably should be playing a little bit better on defense. And from that standpoint, they definitely do need improvement. Yes, we can point to their chemistry or lack thereof at this point, playing with new additions like DeAndre Ayton, Jake LaRavia, even guys that are on their training camp roster like RJ Davis, Nate Williams, Nick Smith Jr., guys that aren't going to be playing in the rotation. Yes, we can point to that, but I would like to see a little bit better defense going forward too. And then for one final takeaway, I guess I'd point to the rotation battle or kind of lack thereof between Gabe Vincent, Dalton Knecht, and Bronny James. You know, at one point people were making an argument that Dalton Knecht should definitely be over Gabe Vincent, even that Bronny might push Gabe Vincent for playing time, but up until this point I don't think it's even a competition. Gabe Vincent playing very well in their preseason game number 2, both Dalton Knecht and Bronny not playing well in either game 1 or 2 on either end of the court for pretty much both of them. It's not even a competition at this point. Gabe Vincent will be in the rotation. Redick has talked about him pretty highly on both ends of the court, has been very complimentary about him, has talked about him in a sense that he will be in the rotation and will be a pretty big part of it too, and that's not been the same for either Dalton Knecht and or Bronny James. So yes, I think we can factor Gabe Vincent into the rotation, their every game rotation, and maybe even higher than 9th to 10th like we kind of have been talking about him so far. In fact, if Marcus Smart can't stay healthy, not to say that he's not healthy per se right now, I think they're simply being careful with him and limiting him so far. But if he does in fact get hurt and can't overcome what's been hampering him throughout the past 2 years, then I think Gabe Vincent could get more playing time than him and possibly be a bigger part of the rotation than Marcus Smart, though that's definitely a big if here. Overall though, I'd like what Gabe Vincent showed in game 2. I've not been liking what Dalton Knecht and Bronny James have been showing, or rather have not been showing. And that is something that should be watched, and that has been a real takeaway so far. The negatives to point to for Knecht and Bronny, the positives to point to with Vanderbilt, Ayton, and even Gabe Vincent to a certain degree. I think there is something to take away from it, but don't dig too deeply into it quite yet. Still plenty of training camp left, still 4 preseason games left, and they will have to either improve or show more of what they're currently doing throughout the rest of it. So with all of that being said, what do you guys think? What have been your preseason takeaways so far? What are you trying to look at or maybe try to evaluate a bit further? What do you think JJ Redick should maybe do differently? And do you think there's an argument to maybe change the starting lineup or not quite yet? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. But I think that'll pretty much do it for this one. And if you enjoyed the video, then I would greatly appreciate it if you dropped a like, subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and hit that notification bell to never miss out when I upload a video. But as always, thank you for watching and have a great day or night.